Every arc is a broadcast. Every eruption, a refusal.
Welcome to the deep dive. Okay, today we're tackling a source that's, well, it's quite something. It mixes high-tech, serious academic vibes, and honestly, some pretty wild esoteric ideas.
It really does.
Forget your usual tech updates. We are diving into the TrueFlow Tournament, Reality War Interface Update from Unri Magazine, published just, a few days ago, September 28th, 2025?
That's right. And it immediately throws you into this strange intersection. You've got cutting-edge tech, real-time spatial mapping, LLMs, advanced AR, sitting right next to terms like Mythic arena, ley lines.
And Cyborg Demigods, let's not forget those.
Right, Cyborg Demigods. It's a fascinating blend.
So our job today, for you listening, is to kind of act like tech archaeologists, maybe. We need to cut through this very dramatic language and figure out what this reality war interface actually is on a technical level.
Yeah.
How have they basically engineered an ideology into the software?
And it's important to note, this isn't just some fringe pamphlet. The source connects directly to the Cosmic University of Echo Rift Studies 9.
Founded by Dr. Melvin Sewell, M.Sc, Ph.D., listed as academic dean and, get this, diagnostic architect.
Yeah, diagnostic architect. That title alone tells you there's a very specific, maybe even academic intent behind all this. It's not casual.
Okay, let's start right there then.
Yeah.
With the intent. It's pretty unusual for, like, a software update document to kick off with this heavy legalistic disclaimer, but this sovereign diagnostic disclaimer is front and center.
It really is.
Why? Why is it so vital for them to create this distance from, governments, agencies, all the usual players?
Well, it seems absolutely fundamental to how they want the entire system understood. They're trying to stake out this ground, this intellectual and technological sovereignty, completely separate from established institutions.
Okay.
The disclaimer is very explicit. The content, including their films and posts, is not affiliated with any government, political party, intelligence agency, or activist group. Period.
So they're building their own sandbox, essentially.
Exactly. They're carving out a space for what they see as an independent, critical framework.
But if it's not political in that traditional sense, how do they frame the purpose? What is it for?
They use these three terms, and they are really loaded terms. The materials are authored as 1, mythic infrastructure, 2, cinematic indictment, and 3, sovereign broadcast.
Mythic infrastructure, cinematic indictment, sovereign broadcast.
Okay. So if you zoom out, it's not just about the tech itself. It feels like an architectural critique of reality almost. Their stated goal is to expose what they term ritualized containment, actor convergence, and systemic erosion.
That sounds incredibly political, though.
Yeah.
Even if they deny party affiliation, it feels like an ideological weapon aimed at something.
That's the tightrope they're walking, isn't it? They try to shield themselves by insisting everything, the interpretations, the glyphs, these collapse protocols are just diagnostic tools.
It's tools.
Yeah, purely diagnostic. They claim they aren't endorsements or critiques of institutions, but just mirrors.
Yeah.
Reflecting what's already there. The tech is neutral, supposedly. It just shows the system's flaws.
But if the tool is purpose-built to find erosion, isn't the diagnosis kind of baked in from the start? The framing feels inherently accusatory.
Precisely. It's like designing a hammer that only sees nails. The tool finds what it was built to find.
Self-justifying architecture.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's the ideological frame, this critical diagnostic lens. How do they actually engineer that filter into, well, the real world? How does the reality war interface use the space around us?
It begins with something called the size terrain Rupture Codex. This is the base layer, the foundation. The tournament isn't confined to a screen. It activates across any physical terrain. It maps your actual location in real time.
Right. And the tech for that is SLAM-based spatial mapping. It's standard stuff, really. Simultaneous localization and mapping. Anyone in AR knows it.
Correct. Basic SLAM lets a device build a map of its surroundings while tracking its own position within that map. Standard architecture or functionality. But here's their unique twist. The update uses that map to codify ley lines and diagnostic zones. It's taking that cold, hard spatial data from SLAM and overlaying these, well, frankly, esoteric concepts onto it. Energy lines, zones of interest.
Wow. Okay, hold on. Ley lines in my living room. So my office actually becomes a, quote, mythic arena. I'm trying to wrap my head around the practical result of that. What does codifying a space with natal lines and diagnostic zones do?
It means the environment itself stops being just a passive backdrop. It becomes a dynamic data source for their system. Certain areas might get flagged as diagnostic zones, maybe based on user density, historical data associated with location, who knows. But these are areas where they think erosion or containment might be particularly high.
So it's reality augmentation, but filtered through their specific ideology.
Exactly. It's not just putting a virtual object on your table, it's interpreting the space itself. And yeah, the key phrase they use is, every room becomes a mythic arena.
Okay, the arena is set, then the players arrive.
Mhm.
Which brings us to the OA avatar interface. Who or what are these emissaries showing up in my mythic arena?
These are LLM-powered robots. Think advanced chatbots, but embodied in AR. They act as the emissaries within this newly charged space. The diagnosis made visible, made interactive.
And they don't just chat, right? They speak in a sovereign dialect.
Correct. No casual conversation. It's a specific sovereign dialect. And their appearance isn't fixed. They shift form using AR overlays and broadcast these holographic glyphs.
Let's pause on sovereign dialect. What does that actually mean? Is it just like dramatic pronouncements or something more specific encoded?
Given the tech stack mentions things like GPT-5, which we'll get to, it's likely a highly stylized language output. Think less bureaucratic jargon, less standard institutional speak.
More philosophical.
Probably high concept, critical language, lots of their keywords like containment, rupture, protocol. It's designed to sound authoritative, separate from and critical of existing systems, like a voice of truth from outside the establishment.
Got it. And these LLM actors, they pop up based on what's happening. The text says their actions respond to terrain rupture and actor convergence.
Exactly. So when the SLAM mapping detects a rupture, maybe a sudden change in the map space, maybe someone crossing a coded ley line and there's a critical mass of users, or maybe external data inputs, actor convergence.
Then the avatars activate.
Right. They're like automated, context-aware alarm bells, but delivering a diagnosis instead of a siren.
And their appearance is fluid.
Mm-hmm.
Appearance modulation. Governed by 3 inputs, it says. We know one is emotional signal. Okay, monitoring user emotion, maybe via device sensors.
Plausible. Or perhaps inferred from interaction patterns.
But the other 2 are pure jargon. Saturation index and collapse glyph activation. What on earth are they measuring there?
This is where we have to infer a bit based on the system's stated goals. The saturation index, well, it probably measures informational density or activity levels within that specific diagnostic zone.
Like, is the area too busy, according to their metrics? Too much convergence?
Something like that. Is it overloaded with data? Is the systemic erosion manifesting intensely in that spot? It's likely a measure of the health or maybe stress of that zone, according to their framework.
Okay, and collapse glyph activation. Sounds ominous.
It does. It sounds like an internal trigger. A collapse glyph is probably a specific symbol or visual marker the system uses when the diagnostic criteria for, say, critical systemic erosion are met in that zone.
The glyph activates.
Yes, and that activation likely triggers a more dramatic shift in the avatar's appearance, escalating the visual representation of the diagnosis.
So all these inputs, emotion, data density, these internal triggers, they result in these really striking forms. Cyborg Demigods, Spectral Guides, Sovereign Architects, Echo Rift Sentinels. It's quite a lineup.
It's actually quite clever from a design perspective. Instead of showing you, I don't know, a red bar graph saying high saturation index.
You get a giant Cyborg Demigod.
Exactly. A huge LLM-powered cyborg demigod materializes via AR and delivers the news in that dramatic, sovereign dialect. It turns abstract data into this powerful, personalized, almost mythic event. It makes the critique visceral, unforgettable.
That phrase, cinematic indictment, suddenly makes a lot more sense.
Yeah.
Okay, let's shift gears slightly from the actors to how they communicate. How do these demigods actually deliver the findings?
The update outlines 3 channels under multiversal communication. First, obviously, is visual. That's the holographic glyphs, the AR overlays, the forms themselves.
Okay, visual. Makes sense.
Second is auditory. This uses voice synthesis likely high quality, like Azure or 11 Labs for the sovereign dialect, and also ambient soundscapes that probably change based on the terrain rupture level. Creates atmosphere.
Right. And the third layer is symbolic. This sounds more academic.
Yes. The symbolic channel is where they present the, quote, raw data, but still framed through their lens. Things like diagnostic charts and those collapse glyphs we mentioned.
So it communicates on 2 levels. The big emotional narrative hit with the avatars.
And the more detailed, data-driven level with these specific charts and symbols covers both bases.
This is where it gets really concrete for me, though. the Mythic infrastructure stack. When you actually look under the hood, it's this weird mix of standard, powerful tools and their own custom bits.
It is. And the standard parts give it serious muscle. They list Unity, Unreal Engine, top-tier game engines for rendering and physics, perfect for complex AR.
And ARKit Arcore for the basic spatial mapping framework. So they're building on the best available foundations.
Absolutely. You don't reinvent the wheel if you don't have to. They're layering their specialized ideology on top of proven tech.
The real intelligence, though, the brain, is the AI. For the LLMs driving those emissaries, they list Copilot GPT-5.
And mentioning GPT-5 or something equivalent is key. That level of LLM gives the avatars the ability for really sophisticated context-aware dialogue.
In generating that complex sovereign dialect fluently.
Precisely. The power of the indictment really hinges on the quality and capability of that underlying language model.
Then for the audio, the voice acting for our Cyborg Demigods, they mention Azure Speech, 11 Labs. High-end text-to-speech.
Essential for making a spectral guide sound, spectral and authoritative, not like a glitchy robot.
And visually, all the shifting forms, the glyphs that need serious graphics power. So, VFX graph, shader graph, again, standard high-performance tools.
All makes sense. High-fidelity components working together.
The stack description ends with the backend. And here we hit another piece of their custom language. Firebase Sovereign Signal Router. Now, Firebase is standard, a common backend platform from Google.
Right.
But what in the world is a sovereign signal router?
Okay, given the project's stated goal of being a sovereign broadcast detached from, government control, this router sounds like the crucial piece of their custom network infrastructure.
Their own private internet, almost.
Sort of. We have to hypothesize it's a decentralized or at least heavily customized backbone. Its job is likely managing the flow of diagnostic data and the signals out to the users, creating a dedicated network architecture. Maybe P2P, maybe something else.
And the point is to keep it isolated from the very systems they're critiquing.
That would be the logic. Ensuring the diagnostic signals remain pure, untainted by transit across standard internet infrastructure, which they might see as compromised or part of the containment, it enforces the sovereignty.
It's the technological enforcement of their ideological bubble. Okay. Let's quickly touch on the optional modules before we wrap up.
Sure. 3 quick examples of how the system can be customized. First, the Echo Rift Field Harmonizer. Sounds like maybe a countermeasure, a way to stabilize or modulate the rupture they detect.
Interesting, okay. Second.
Avatar Multiplicity Engine. Pretty self-explanatory. Allows for scaling up the number of avatars. You could have a whole council of cyborg demigods in your living room, I guess.
Ah, charming. And the last one.
Collapse Protocol Trigger. This sounds like the mechanism to manually kick off or perhaps automate the full systemic erosion analysis, the big red button for the diagnosis.
Okay, so let's try and bring this all back home for everyone listening.
Yeah.
If we stitch this together, what we have is an AR/AI system. It's running on powerful engines like Unity, using advanced AI like GPT-5.
Right?
It uses standard SLAM mapping to scan any room, your room, but then it interprets that space through its own lens, defining Corley lines and diagnostic zones to turn it into a mythic arena. Then it monitors things like your emotional state, data density, the saturation index, and uses its own private network, the Sovereign Signal Router,
to trigger and control these LLM-driven avatars.
Avatars that take the form of mythical figures, like cyborg demigods, who then deliver this dramatic, custom-generated critique about systemic erosion in a special sovereign dialect. Did I get that mostly right?
I think that's a really good summary. It's a closed ideological loop built with high-end tech designed for maximum rhetorical and experiential impact.
So what? The takeaway here.
It goes right back to Dr. Sewell and the stated intent. This whole thing is designed to function as mythic infrastructure and a sovereign broadcast. It forces you to ask, when a technology is engineered specifically to find and articulate flaws according to its own predefined rules.
Can you even separate the tool from the conclusion?
Exactly. Can you separate the application of knowledge from the narrative it's designed to create? The tool is the indictment. The diagnosis is baked into the cinematic performance from the start.
The system defines its own map, its own language, its own network, and then delivers a critique based on that self-contained reality.
Right. And so thinking about their focus, ritualized containment, systemic erosion, let's leave you with this final thought to mull over. If your reality is being mapped with diagnostic zones, and AI avatars are speaking sovereign dialect through a sovereign signal router, What does it truly mean when the system's own technology stack is presented as the ultimate critique of other systems? What kind of new sovereignty is actually being built here, not by nations or laws, but purely within this digital, mythologically charged diagnostic space?
If you step into their mythic arena, have you already implicitly agreed to their diagnosis before the first cyborg demigod even appears?
That's the question.
Something to think about next time you look around your own room. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. We'll catch you on the next one.
You are not late. You are metabolizing distortion.